room, one of the things, and you can see on our different marketing material here, is that we are here to unlock potential to some of the most pressing issues the country currently faces. And as you watched the video this morning, we started speaking about how our economy, not just that are gathered with us here this morning. I would like at this point to particularly extend a very warm welcome to our esteemed guests and speakers, but also specifically to the teams that join us from the Department of Partnership. We thank them for their collaboration, because this is, of course, what ecosystems are about, growing together. So thank you to our speakers for joining us. They join us from far and wide around the country. A little bit of housekeeping from my side and aspect is just simply to ask everybody to just make sure that people know you're supposed to be at the right venues. The staff is also here to assist you with that and any other inquiries within the venue from the floor. So when I invited everybody to come a little on the floor, bit closer this morning, it's exactly that. We are not here to listen to a series of lectures or presentations, but we are here, in fact, to share, to shift the needle, but also to interact in such a way that when we leave here as part of this symposium, we leave having shaped new ways.
Thank you very much. You are so kind. Some of us are not as tall as we are supposed to be. That would be great. Distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, research partners, members of WNR CETA family, and all the stakeholders gathered here today. It is both an honor and a privilege. South African's common economy, it employs millions. So when I say millions, just over 3.4 million people just in the formal sector, and I'm sure we're not even sure about the informal sector. I think we always, for rigorous and to be very clear, action is the operative word, because has never been a greater one. Over the years, the CETA has recognized that the research is not merely an academic exercise, but a tool that can guide sectoral transformation. The insight generated from CETA-funded research enable us to understand the nuances of workforce development, pinpoint gaps in skills provision, and anticipate future trends that will shape the wholesale and retail CETA landscape. The symposium, therefore, is more than just sharing, and I think the program director shared this. It's not a lecture. We're not just wanting you to come and listen, but it's a platform for us to engage with Koreans and to collectively chart ways for a sustainable and inclusive and across regions. The need for formalization across regions, the need for formalization in informal retail, and the imperative sustainability and practical processes. The research presented here offers practical guidance on these fronts. For instance, studies on post-COVID technology adoption provide tangible recommendations for navigating e-commerce evolution, workforce adaptation, and employee empowerment. We know we talk about Gen Z, Gen X, Gen whatever. Similarly, investigations into township economies and youth employability shed light on how to strengthen local markets and unlock opportunities and foster entrepreneurship among young people. Research, therefore, is not just an academic pursuit, it is an actionable solution framework, and it equips industry leaders, policymakers, and educators with the evidence needed to make informed decisions. By engaging with these insights, the sector can anticipate change, mitigate risks, and position itself for a sustainable growth. This symposium is, in essence, a call for action and a reminder that investing in research is investing in the future competitiveness and resilience of our sector. I'm pleased to highlight that this year's symposium will feature findings from the 2004 to 2005 summative research publication, which compiles all research reports and codes linking to the digital property are located behind your name tags. This allows all participants to view research in real time, download reports, reference the findings during the discussions today in their ongoing work. The digital access ensures that evidence generated through the WNR-funded research is widely disseminated, available, and immediately actionable. While the WNR has made significant, and obviously including other CETAs, investment in research over the years, the scale and pace of change in the sector demand that the sector partners also play an active role. Research funding should be a shared responsibility, as the insight generated benefit the entire ecosystem: employers, employees, trainees, and ultimately consumers. By investing in research, industry leaders are not only contributing to the generation of knowledge, but ensuring that skills development programs and work interventions and policy decisions are grounded in evidence. And I think while I'm here, it's just interesting, and I would like to, as you engage, ask yourself how much investment as a country, if we want to be a better country, how much in our own organizations, as a government, and everyone else is investing in research and development, R&D. And what is the contribution of R&D does in order to assist a country to develop better? And I think that's just an important question that we constantly have to have and ask ourselves. And I don't want to, and I'm not one of those people that like to share bad news, but I just want us to reflect along by organizations to embed research into strategic planning, operational decision-making, and skills development initiative. And I was being interviewed yesterday, and the interviewer asked me, does research bring anything on the table, in terms of tangible? And I think that's the conversation that I don't have an answer, probably it's one of the conversations that we need to have today. I think it does bring something on the table indirectly. It might not bring anything directly. It is important to note that today's symposium is not an isolated event, but a critical milestone in the work WNR-CETA's research calendar. The insights, the dialogue, and the recommendations generated here will directly inform the 2006 WNR-CETA conference, an event that will further consolidate sectoral knowledge, deepen cross-stakeholder collaboration, and catalyze actionable strategies for the coming years. The 2006 conference that will build on the foundations laid by today's discussion, allowing more integrated and strategic approach for skills planning, technology adoption, and sectoral transformation. By actively engaging with this symposium and referring to the 2004 summative research publication, participants are contributing to the continuum of research-driven interventions that will ultimately shape the future of the wholesale and retail sector. In this way, today's work is both reflective and forward-looking, and a bridge between the evidence generation and sector impact. As I continue to acknowledge our stakeholders, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all those that have contributed to the success of this symposium, our research partners, including universities, leadership chairs, postdoctoral fellows have worked tirelessly to produce rigorous and actionable research. And I'm sure you're constantly hearing the word actionable research. Our industry partners, employers, and associations continue to provide practical insights that enrich our understanding of sectoral needs. We extend sincere appreciation to CETA CEOs that are here with us today, the Department of Higher Education and Training, our communities around ourselves. And in CETA in particular, for being a co-sponsor to this session. Your support reflects collective commitment to strengthening collaboration across the skills ecosystem. Of course, WNR-CETA team that has demonstrated exceptional dedication in making sure that this event is not only ran smoothly, but delivers meaningful outcomes for all the participants. Your presence here today, all of you, signifies a shared commitment to sectoral transformation, knowledge-driven decision-making, and creation of opportunities for our workforce, particularly the youth, women. I'm sure I was out of order with you guys when we were having a discussion, and I was actually telling you that the wholesale and retail sector is not what we think it is. Because you've got fintech, you've got clothing and textile, you've got pharmaceutical environment within the wholesale and retail sector. We need to start thinking about how, from our side, are contributing to that in terms of our funding, work, programs, and everything that we are doing as WNRC. I urge all participants to engage actively, share insights, and reflect how these findings are applied with your respective spheres of influence. Let this symposium be a catalyst for innovation, strategic foresight, sustainable growth in the wholesale and retail sector. Together, through research, collaboration, and investment, we can ensure that our sector remains resilient, future-ready, and inclusive. I also encourage everyone to access, obviously, our QR code and our research publication, as we've indicated, which will enable immediate engagement with the evidence and strengthen outcomes of our discussion. I look forward to the robust discussions, practical recommendations, visionary insights that will emerge from today's engagement, and I'm confident that this symposium will lay the foundation for the 2006 Research Conference. I thank you. I wish you all a productive and inspiring symposium. Thank you, Program Director.
Thank you very much to the CEO, Mr. Tom Mkhwanazi. If you live in KwaZulu-Natal, CEO, where the new nickname for those of you in the room who are visiting, who don't know about KZM, we're not KZN, KZM, KwaZulu Mkhwanazi. So thank you very much to the CEO and welcome to KwaZulu Mkhwanazi with those awards. Ladies and gentlemen, as reflected on today, I think we certainly know that then, based on the CEO's speech and his leadership in terms of where are we going, we are going to focus really on the central dimensions of digital futures, the role that, there's unspoken of, unaccounted for, untraced economies and value chains in retail, who contribute so much to the sector that, as he indicated today, we don't even have evidence-based data that even begins to quantify or touch the surface as to how expansive this sector is and its impacts, not just on our economy, but even socio-economic dimensions, and as well as different points of resilience within our country today. I think also a very important point that as we continue the day is really going to be looking at data as the new tar road. Now, our next speaker, Zandile, will know we recently attended a conference where somebody mentioned that data is the new tar road. And if we look at the fastest growing economies anywhere in the world today, their biggest investment, before they invest in industry, skills development, education, even basic education, health, actually lies in research and development. And based on the outcomes and the practical, implementable, actionable insights that they gain from that, it begins then to filter into society as transformative plans and action plans, as well as pathways to prosperity. And that is something that as a country, we need to change our mindsets about. That research is not this academic exercise, an intangible, nice to have, but it is, in fact, at the bedrock of what it's going to mean to create an economy that is inclusive to all, informal, formal, structured, unstructured, documented, and undocumented. So thank you very much, CEO, for that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I would also like to continue to ask you to refer to the research findings. The QR code is also on your tag. And during our breaks today, we also, again, have the exhibitions outside. And I think that's part of data mining and the opportunity not just to converse, but also to look at what is happening on the ground and converse with those who have joined us today and put those together. I'd now like to welcome to our stage to deliver the keynote address for this morning, Ms. Zandile Mposelwa. Zandile, ladies and gentlemen, is the Director of Corporate Affairs, and is it Better Days, Promise Lead, May Not, SSA for Kellanova, Kellogg's to you. But Kellogg's has since changed its brand and its naming in our market as a multinational to Killanova, but she'll give us a little bit of an insight to that. But what you will know about Zandile is that not just her extensive expertise in corporate affairs and purpose-driven initiatives, but this is someone who, as an organization, is constantly promoting different elements of what are going to, of touch points that are going to keep coming through today. How do we create inclusivity? How do we create social impact? How do we better use data to get the right outcomes, particularly related to security in the country? Food security, very much at the top of that particular list. But also, we invite her today to reflect on how research and innovation in particular, as for them as an FMCG company operating in South Africa, on the African continent and globally, really shapes what it is that becomes some of the tangible potential, as well as programs that they run, not just in production, but in so many different areas of the retail value chain. So please give her a very warm round of applause as she makes her way to the stage.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to try to use, I don't particularly like to stand here, but there's just so much on my, please switch this off. On my hands today, I'm going to be talking about something that I'm passionate about, the space that we're in. And having worked in marketing, having worked in sales, having worked in operations and corporate affairs, it's quite surprising for me that there would be somebody who doesn't really get the importance of research, because it really informs every single thing that we do. They just don't realize it yet. What I've also learned is that it's sometimes, please, the finance people in the room, please forgive me. It's because sometimes the business is focused on what the P&L says. And they don't understand that what informs what is in the P&L is decisions that are leading to that. So that's something that we need to think about. So, and thank you to the WRCTA for the invitation, Babum Kwanazi and Tabang especially. And ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor for me to be here, to be able to share some insights. Okay.
Back on your
Yes.
mic. And then you can use...
I've got this.
So they're going to switch that off and then just ask you to go hand in hand.
Okay.
Is that okay?
I don't want that. Yeah.
Happening.
So there's a lot happening. Yeah. Let's rather do that. Yeah. Thank you. So I think for me, let me just get my slides going. Are they ready? Oh, behind me. Okay, great. So this is a perfect place for me to stand. Yeah. Yeah. So then I can. Okay. Let's then, I'll stand here and use this, whichever one you want me to use. I thought that the presentation would come on this only. Okay. Thank you. So when we really talk about research and action and purpose-led, evidence-driven, for me that is very important and that is very close to my heart, because I've seen a case where we sit around the table and debate in each and every part of our business, whether we're talking about research, nutrition and development, or talk about people management, or talk about corporate affairs, or talk about supply chain, how research gets weaved into that. So those are some of the thoughts that I'm going to be touching today. And I think another point that is important is how do we turn research into jobs, resilience, and shared value. That for me personally is important as a South African in a country that has got high unemployment rate. it is extra important in an environment and in an audience where we've got institutions of higher learning. And why that is important to me? It's because many a times I would interact with graduates that come through the system, and they cannot create a connection between what the reality of what is happening in the world of work, what organizations are looking for, and what they've studied. And that is painful. Even more painful because I can see it in the eyes of this applicant that this job means having to come home and put food on the table. Some of them, I've spoken to them, they got delayed in the taxi coming from wherever because they've been trying to get money to come to the interview. Because I know, that way I know what is important. So when you are then a girl coming from Transkei and Stekspruit, you understand the challenges that come with these things. And you have to check your privilege, because I got into my car and got to work. And some of my colleagues don't understand this, and then you must create that. It's because of that disconnection that I think there needs to be, and it's an appeal for me to the people in the room to say, how do we make sure that we create that connection? Because I think for me, though, that is a very important enabler to make sure that, you know, these jobs that are get created, that they're sustainable. And also to give that young intern, graduate, entry level, that level of confidence, so that when she shows up confidently. You can arguably see, and please again forgive me here, but you can arguably see a difference between a graduate from UJ Wits and one coming, I'm going to use my hometown, from Kala, TVET College. You can see it because of perhaps the exposure that they got. Sometimes the connection is much better. The one who comes to UJ is much more experienced, knows what is happening. Maybe they've worked. So there is that I would like to challenge us to think about. Anyway, I said then something that, okay? So research for me is not a luxury, really. It's about, it creates that compass for us to drive growth. And the data and the evidence is really, let's think about the disruptions that came with COVID. Let's think about the supply chain disruption, the product disruption. Me in the, we sell cereals, we food. The disruptions of having, during COVID, to produce so much food because people are at home. So now, well, if you don't have that data that gives a sense of what could happen, you are not able to do proper demand forecasting, supply forecasting. You're not able to move the food, to make the food, and all of those good things, and market as well. And another thing that I would like to just bring to the table, in our world, research talks to understanding what does a consumer want in a breakfast cereals. It talks research that informs us what are the nutritional requirements in South Africa, what are the vitamin gaps that exist, and how do we make sure that we fortify the food in order you get the taste, so that you get the nutrition gaps as well that is closed. It also talks to understanding where do we get the raw materials that we're able to make the food with. And it talks to making sure that we've got we also have the know-how about talking to the retailers so that we meet their needs, because it's not just a given. And also how to work with them to do demand planning, demand forecasting, supply planning, and also how do we make sure that we've got the engineers, the nutritionists, the salespeople, the skills that we need in order to take those insights and action them in order to deliver the business growth that we're looking for. And how do we better understand the research from a marketing perspective in order to take advantage of that and have the people in place to be able to understand that. It also refers to how do we better understand the challenges from a corporate reputation perspective. And it talks research so that we're able to leverage on digital to do social listening, in order to understand where could be the burning points be for the organization, and us in corporate affairs and public relations, how do we able to proactively be able to respond to that? So that's why I'm saying that it's a compass altogether. And for me, it matters because it also, and it talks to the subject at hand, that it reduces the policy, you know, the mismatch that we sometimes potentially could see. And it takes me back to a time when I was about many years ago looking to study in tertiary. Everybody was doing personnel management. I didn't know what it was. And I thought, well, there will be a lot of personnel management people out there. Let me not do it. It's a joke. And also evidence that allows us to compare, you know, across from an intervention perspective beyond the impact that we are doing and beyond the antidotes that we sometimes get. And if you live in South Africa, you know how much we will go on radio and say all over the world, things are happening this way, not in South Africa, but that's not fact-based. Research helps us to validate that. And another one that is very important to me, identifying and validates the hidden barriers. Personally, I'm an advocate for gender inclusivity. And that's some of the things that I do from a personal space as well. So in that context also, research helps us to understand, for example, in a workplace, what are women looking for in order to thrive? And for us at Kilanova, this helped us to understand that, for example, a pregnant factory operator, when she's 7-8 months pregnant, she needs a PPE that is flexible. And that research is a research where you talk to people and you listen to their lived experiences. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's not only look from a quantitative, let's look qualitative, let's engage to understand even the smallest things. And I'm saying this because sometimes you might think that when you talk research, something that is big, it talks about understanding those dynamics, and also it talks to understanding as well and influencing a change that is palpable, that is transformational. And it helps also to strengthen the business case for change. And that is what I was saying earlier on, that investment decisions, they talk P&L, it runs on sense. So when you're able to build your case, whether you're talking about a slight change or change in the production process, or talking about a change in how you engage, that research comes through for that. And another thing that is very important, that is important around the case for change, as we talk about Babam Kwanazi around and uses Madam MC, you're talking about the youth unemployment that we see. So when we're able to move the change through these things, and we're able to leverage on the strengths and how we empower the young people as employers in the world of work, we need to understand that this goes beyond that, and research helps us to understand that. For example, I spoke about the importance, the difference that a salary makes in a South African child. It talks to be able to manage black tax. It talks to that be able to be empowered. It talks to be able to make decisions that are palpable. It talks to be able to pull another one up. So let's just not underestimate the impact that this could cause for us. So I'm going to look at these 5 points quite quickly. And the first one being the skills development. And I think for me this is important because we need to make sure that we focus on the skills of tomorrow. And I mentioned earlier around that. And this is, for me, something that is very important, as I'm sure you've heard. And also let's think about monetizing the digitally. If you go to social media today and you see a lot of people, when they define who they are, they're talking about their digital creators. You're a digital creator, but I can ask you a question. How many of those digital creators are making money out of it? Very little in South Africa. And this is about how do we leverage on technology, on research, in order to be able to train for tomorrow, to say how do we leverage on the skills for tomorrow. And also, one of the things that I feel that is important, I spoke about the digital literacy, and let's unpack that a little bit. And I will talk to it later on as well. Let's think about what happened when you see the gap in the market. It doesn't mean anything if you don't do anything about it. And I also want us to think about whether the programs like the entrepreneurship that are currently being taught, that is being funded, does it really teach from a theoretical perspective? Or does it also teach the person to say, how do you get that last mile to get to your consumers as a young person to drive entrepreneurship? I spoke about another one, scale work-based learning. This is important for me. And this is a challenge for us employers to be able to make sure that our partnerships and our internships that are actually paid. And we're not saying that, but you are learning. This is very important, and it's something that is important. And by making sure that from a skills development perspective, it's research-based and research-informed, that we are able to also produce qualified people that are able to respond to what is being needed. A few years ago, I was asked by UNISA, the Department of Marketing, a lot of us in retail, we would be asked to go there where they would have a workshop to ask us, what are you looking for? What was said about it, and I love UNISA, brilliant institution, I've got a program from there. What concerns me though, is that a child who's gone to UNISA, they don't know what to do with what is there. For example, if they're staying in Bushabelo, they won't necessarily have access to face-to-face. They won't have, some of them, now I work in corporate affairs, right? So when I recruit an intern for strategic communications, I need to be able, they need to have basics about how do you write an internal communication? How do you write an announcement? But when they've never had a laptop, a computer, how do you do that? So if you're not patient to be able to teach the person and you say, you know what, you're not right for this, it's not their fault. It's how things are happening. And I really hope that perhaps things have changed since then, because it's probably about 5-6 years ago since I did that. So that is very important. And these are some things that I also uncover in my personal capacity when I coach and young people, you know, that there's the gap that is there that is really quite concerning. And I guess it's something to think about, how do we address that? I'll talk about the adoption, digital adoption and emerging trends. This for me is very important, that we need to think about that. Just a case example about the first pillar on e-commerce. Think about ShopRite Checkers and their 60/60 during COVID. I mean, that was like amazing. And I was a pregnant person during COVID, scared, putting on 2 masks when I leave my house. But with Checkers 60/60, because they're efficient, 60 minutes after my order, I had my order. I did not have to worry about that. Fast forward, my son is studying, doing 3rd year. I don't have to worry. He orders on 60/60. I don't have to worry about it. It's sorted. I don't have to think about it. And also, I was traveling this whole week. I've had to sort out orders for home. I don't have to worry about it. So, and I think it's about, now I'm turning it to say, it's about then how do we make sure that we leverage on that, because the insights are there. The insights are there. It's about how do we also, I think the key thing as well is about how then those insights are taken, you adapt it into your business, and you work with the relevant people, the skills and innovation that is made available, and you move on with it. So it's something that really we need to think about, really leveraging on that in the digital channels. And AI is here to stay. And I heard that UCT is going to allow students to use AI in part of doing their studying now. It's here, it's not going to go away. We, in corporate affairs, we use it sometimes to inspire knowledge or to refine our ideas. But one thing that will always be important is that there will always be a human element to it. But what is important for me is about how do we use it effectively to really drive, because it's already there. And we just need to look at practical steps to move technology to action, to what you said, Babu Mkwanas, that the transformation to action is important. Now, moving on to entrepreneurship as a driver for inclusive growth, and it's been said from an unemployment perspective. And I think for me, the challenge is around market access. And in many times when we talk to entrepreneurs, they sometimes don't even want money. They're like, I don't want money. I want access, market access. Because market access gives that sense that I am delivering something for my family, for the market. I'm creating jobs. It is sustainable. And also it moves away from being, it helps move the thinking from being a side hustle to actually to creating jobs. And we should not underestimate that. And this is a challenge also for us as employers, not just as employers, just as organizations, to make sure that we bring in, we use, the research tells us, you know, that there are a lot from the industrial, potential industrialists out there. How do we bring them into the system? And how do we make sure we work with them? And for us, that is important. For example, we buy corn. Buy lots of corn to make our cornflakes. We don't get the corn from the farmer. It needs to be milled, and then from the millers, it needs to come to us. Now, how do we then influence our value chain to make sure that young farmers are part of the millers that we source our corn grits from, that is ready to make cornflakes? So it just goes beyond just those conversations, because sometimes it gets hard. And the digital enablement is important as well. And during COVID again, we saw how everybody was selling something on Instagram and on Facebook. Opportunities are there, but needs to be done properly. And also it's about how the entrepreneurs leverage, you know, and as much as they take the growth opportunities that are there, how do we do it effectively? Financial support, it goes without say. And also it's a challenge to say, how do we make sure that our entrepreneurs that are coming out of institutions that are young, how do we make sure that they understand how to put together proposals for funding? And hopefully, you know, the government organizations as well, and government from a funding perspective, to make that easier for them. But I always say that what is important is about understanding what the purpose is, and I'll talk to it now. So just a high level, some of the practical levers that I think are important, as well as from a measuring of impact is important. And again, weaving in the insights and research there. So here I'm going to use an example of an entrepreneur who leads on purpose and who's leveraging on all the points that I've spoken about. This lady, stitched by Inga, she made this skirt that I'm wearing today. I'm using it and intentionally wore this skirt because of the subject of what you're talking about. She was a PR executive turned an entrepreneur, so she took advantage of the opportunity. And she made sure that, and by the way, she directly and indirectly employs 8 people. So she made sure that her business, she uses her research to be clear about who is she targeting, how is she going to get to them, how is she going to make it unique to them. And she's all about making sure that as an African girl, ladies in the room, you know what I mean when I say I'm an African girl, she's able to make an outfit that makes me feel good as an African woman. And also, if she feels that it's not gonna look good on me, she'll tell me no, it's not gonna happen. So it's also about understanding and using research and insights, understanding her market, how to do that. And she's gone beyond and above that to be able to say, okay, I need to make sure that I'm not a seamstress in the township that will, Lynette is gonna go and say that jacket is not ready. She will make sure that you book online. If you are not there on time, you have to rebook at a different time. You pay online, everything is done. So it's all about, I'm making an example of an entrepreneur that is using the technology, the research that she's done to meet her needs, and she's also creating employment. So, so these are some of the things that I wanted to talk about. And also just moving to emerging trends and digital futures. So those are just the key points that I want us to just think about from a short-term, medium-term. But the one that is most important for me is about, as we get ourselves ready and leverage on the research that we have, and I spoke about doing teaching skills for the future, we need to make sure that we reskill people so we don't lose them. We need to make sure that there's participation and really leverage on AI. like I've said earlier on. And, ladies and gentlemen, this is me. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, before Zandile leaves the stage, let me allow an opportunity. I know we've got roving mics. Does anybody have any specific questions? And I say specific questions for her, based on some of the insights that she shared of the Killanova journey specifically, but also the entrepreneurial insights today. Okay, I'm making sure I'm not missing anything under the lights. But she's also here with us today for the day. So ladies and gentlemen, please feel free to engage with her. Thank you so much, Zandile, for your presentation today and sharing your insights with us. Ladies and gentlemen, I think what we've also seen today is something very, very important. How digital transformation is in so many ways changing the game for the wholesale and retail sector. Today we've got Checkers 60, which has moved not just from deliveries, but we've now got that self-checkout trolley that they're trialing. But 7 years ago, in the US, Amazon started Amazon Go, which is a similar concept where you walked into a store, nobody checked on you, you did your own thing, the shelves recorded everything, and on your way you went. And for many South Africans, it was like, this will never work here. We don't trust each other. Will you check out and pay? So, ayakho sisoza plastic. And you see, and all of those things, ladies and gentlemen, are nuances of where trends are taking us, what the social and lived experience of shopping is actually about and consumer science is about, but also all about skills training. How do we transit this massive workforce of retail workers that we do have today who are employed in this space in the field to also adopt some of the language, some of the nuances, some of the dynamics that are now coming with them having to work in these very digitally empowered environments, where they're not just shoppers who are picking things off the shelves on our behalf, but they also feel as though they are participants of something bigger than what they invested in to start with. This is also a stepping stone for the next stage, perhaps of a career, an entrepreneurial journey, or even higher learning and the academics related to it. And these are all some of the practical examples, ladies and gentlemen, that as the day continues, I hope we're going to have the opportunity to unpack, because there's no point of saying, hey, let's go with a trend and we're moving with it if there is anybody left behind. It's critical that nobody is left behind. So I'd like at this point in time to open my very first panel. And if I can invite to the stage Dr. Linda Chipunza, and I'll introduce them once they're in stage with me, Dr. Makosa Zanebuthelezi, Mr. Yunus Doba, Mr. Kulegani Mkize, as well as Miss Alicia Sarbajath. She will make sure, of course, that I've pronounced that correctly, to the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, we're going to look at the digital future. And of course, we're going to start navigating what this evolution means, but more importantly, what the evolution means for our existing markets, our existing skills, and what the implication of that has on our workforce, not just adapting, but also adopting some of the best practice, some of the new innovation, and a lot of the research outcomes that are coming to life in this room and in so many different platforms as well as retail environments around us. If I can invite my guests up onto stage. With that, can I very kindly ask my tech desk to provide me with their microphones as well, or do they have the microphones in hand? Okay, I've got 2 mics on stage with me. Please take your seats. Thank you. The middle seat is yours, yes. I think I'm actually going to ask you to hold it. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, how we have structured today's panel discussions is that we're going to set scenes. And we have allowed in our panels that a speaker or two shares with us some research or a body of work that has already been published on the space and the particular subject matter we are going to unpack. So I'm going to invite first up to the microphone and the lectern. I'm not sure where my clicker though has gone. Zandi, I'm not sure if you took the clicker with you. No? No, okay. I'm not sure where the clicker has gone, but I'd like to invite to the lectern Dr. Linda Chipunza. Now, she's our lead researcher at the CPUT Research Leadership Chair. And she's our chair for CPUT at that research chair. So this is going to be interesting for some of you. There's the research chairs under the leadership of the different institutions. So I'll also get it right with you. And what she will be presenting and setting the scene for us is what post-COVID-19 technology adoption looks like for the sector. So I'm going to welcome her to the mic, and immediately after that, I'm going to ask then Dr. Makhosa Buthelezi to unpack her topic as well. And as we sit then together with the rest of our panel guests, we will begin to unpack the nuances of these and the experiences of those who join us on stage from the different chairs and institutions in terms of how progress is being made and how adaptation and adoption is going in the marketplace. Thank you.
Thank you to you. I'm just waiting for my presentation to come up, and then I'll be away. And I just wanted to say to you, Mr. Mkwanazi, I think next time you face people that ask you about research, do take Zandile and I, and we'll tell them exactly why our research is important. Thank you. I was asked by Cape Peninsula University of Technology to do a research for them, which I conducted in 2022-23, just as we were coming off COVID-19, to try and see to what extent the wholesale sector and the retail sector had adopted technology or technology-mediated gadgetry. And they also asked me to look at possible strategies as well as practices that have been adopted so far. Just to give comfort to the room, I didn't end then. When I was invited to come and talk today, I then did a quick walkabout, almost back to the people that I had worked with. I didn't research on. I made sure that I researched with industry. So I went back to the likes of Woolies, Walmart, DSV, etc., and checked, tried to see, indeed, are they still doing what they said they were doing in 2022? And it was a very pleasing picture that I came away with, that whatever was happening in 2022, they've actually uplifted the game. They've really lifted the game. I'm going to take you through a presentation very, very quickly, because I don't have much time, but as you can imagine, 6-8 months of research to reduce it to 10 minutes needs a bit of a skill. So that's a picture, I didn't get it very well, of a warehouse. It looks like, or big warehouses, they almost look like cities, like New York, the streets, signposted. Beautiful work that has gone on in there. I'll start off with an executive summary. Please, the light is just too much in my face. That yes, indeed, COVID-19 was a disruptor when it hit us March 2020. But in as much as it was a disruptor, it also offered opportunities for our innovative ways of doing work, of doing business, of trading, of marketing, etc. So the pandemic really, what it did was that it brought about opportunities for improvement in what people in the W&R CETA were doing regarding trading, regarding advertising, regarding movement of goods, etc., that they adopted fourth and fifth industrial revolution technologies, things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, virtual and augmented learning, that came through. And obviously they'd already started before COVID because technology advancements or the use of technology was already on the agenda of 2030, both in South Africa as internationally. And also because South Africa is a member of BRICS, amongst other economic hubs, we cannot afford to do things slowly. We've got our own problems at home, the biggest being unemployment. Can we really afford to bring in all this technology when we have people that don't have work? But at the same time, because we are trading with the big giants, we are playing with the big guys, we have to keep up with them. So there's a CETA, W&R CETA, together with the stakeholders, really need to come to the fore and say thank you to COVID-19. You forced us to come and work in a different way, and that the different way that we are using now has improved customer experience and profitability, as well as increased efficiency. What I was asked to do was to study the technologies that have been implemented abroad. I'm not going to spend time on that because there's a lot. We are running behind them. And then also to establish the current adoption rates of the fourth and fifth industrial revolutions in South Africa. And then most importantly, provide evidence-based recommendations on the strategies and practices that should work or should improve what needs to be done. I won't bore you with methodology. Please trust me. I've worked in universities for a long time, so I know what I was doing, a bit of qualitative research, design, embedded research, which allows you to do almost anything under the sun. Desktop research, I observed, because of my gray hair, I was allowed into spaces that not many of you would go into, to sit and watch and see what's going on. And then I had a lot of focus group discussions. Fortunately, where I work sometimes, we do take on students, especially from the warehousing and retail industries. And so it was easy, captive audience, 30 students, and we had a lot of discussions around there. So my population was everybody that I could get hold of, but more importantly, people that I knew were knowledgeable about warehousing, about retail, as well as I did a bit of research with the CETA officials and other experts. So my research sampling was purposive, and that's a bit of a fancy slide there. Data collection, what I did, and then obviously data analysis. I analyzed it until my eyes were red, and I drew themes, and I came away with important findings. My findings, I will go to the bottom here, where it was confirmed that 4IR and 5IR technologies were being adopted by 72%, and some, especially the smaller ones, said they were still waiting to see, they were not too sure, they couldn't afford, etc. And understandably so, because adoption of technology is very, very expensive. Then looking at the summarized findings, unfortunately I can't read that from here, it came out that the focused technologies were things like big data, AI, ML, Internet of Things, e-commerce came through very big, robotics, virtual and augmented reality. Another focus area was why are industries not using the new technology? And there was talk of a lack of strategic intent. This is new to us. Do we really need it? People are still asking questions. Labor unions arguing, we cannot introduce this. What's going to happen to people? There's lots of resistance there. And obviously moving from manual warehousing or retailing to high-tech is costly. Where do we get the money from? Then we also looked at factors that worked as enablers for successful implementation, and these were training, and I was happy that training was uppermost, because in most organizations, training comes last. Digitization process research, again, people were researching what's happening overseas, what's happening in other industries, etc. Business adaptability, agility, change management, and strong innovation culture. And then when we looked at what were the strategies that were being used in warehousing as well as in retail regarding the implementation of 4IR and 5IR, we noticed that many boards were becoming interested, beginning to discuss what is happening within their companies, how can they change, looking to the big guys, the DSVs, the one that I visited, sorry? Yes. And identifying and also looking at the return on investment, and they could actually see there is value in this. Let's maybe see what's happening. Let's source talent from abroad to come and teach us. So there was even a lot of movement, people going to Italy, going to Spain, where you have older populations, and therefore they have had to adapt to technology a lot faster, for us to go and see what is happening then, what can we actually copy. General findings or factors contributing to 4IR and 5IR technology. And a lot of companies realize they need to remain competitive, they need to streamline their processes, because everywhere industry is changing. There's need for speed, for development, for global trends, for us to take them on, because after all, we are trading with a lot of global companies. We need to enhance customer experience. And they also realize the cost benefits that come from using technology. And the last point is a painful one. It also talks to how companies can now reduce costs, employment costs, which for us is a huge debate. It's a conundrum. New technologies being introduced. We looked at robotics, cloud technology, optical character recognition systems, holographic product displays, and in retail, there's now more self-service systems and biometric systems at point of sale. And then we looked at how the need for new technologies were determined. This was done through due diligence with competitors, whether it's in the wholesale sector or in retail, market analysis, ExCo decisions, everybody wanting to be at the top of the game. So I took a picture there of Take-A-Lot, the machinery, things moving. Sometimes I wonder, in 2050, are there going to be people working in these warehouses, or machines will be doing all the work on their own? Then what do we do? Some warehouse strategies that were adopted. I think they realized, or if I can say, how warehouses, and this I noted in my visits or in my walkabouts last week, that there's now a holistic view of their processes, to decide on fit and proper technologies. What do we need between the bigger, the medium, the large, the small? People cannot just adopt things wholesale. We're also looking at strategically positioning warehouses for on-demand delivery and reduction of delivery costs. For example, a lot of warehouses behind the airport, close to big shopping centers, so that things can be moved up and down very, very easily. Reduction of startup costs, that has also happened by integrating old technologies with new technologies, which is also a way of saving on startup costs as people introduce technology. And then digital transformation, focusing on employee skilling, reskilling, upskilling, and in some times, having to unlearn things that they were used to. Labor negotiations is one thing that has been ongoing to get labor buy-in, and then working on transformative change strategies, or ensuring that supply chain managers, which I think is important, now start to sit on the boardroom table. We also noticed that there were a lot of improvements. For example, inventory management has gone up a notch or two. Shelving of goods is now being informed by seasonal trends, market predictions, demand. There's a lot of safety, CCTV, sensors, alarms, etc. And just to speak to that one, when you talk about safety and security, I did visit 2 retail shops, joints, in upmarket areas in Johannesburg, and I said, let me try this out. So I went and I was going to scan my things and pay, by card there and then. But lo and behold, there was a security guy standing there watching what I was doing. Then I thought that is defeating the whole purpose of having a self-paying point. Reduction of costs, which has come through drones, excellent technology, which can work at night 24/7. Zone management is in place. And we are noticing demand frequency and volume predictions are now possible because of technology that has been introduced into warehouses as well as the retail sector. I think some of these you can also look at in the report yourself. But there have been a lot of improvements in retail. For example, tracking orders, identifying fast-moving lines, eliminating under or overstocking, confirming buying patterns, who is buying what. If you go, for example, into a Woolies, their shelves are not the same. It depends on the area as informed by technology, who comes into this shop at what time and what are they looking for. And what's also important, tracking staff performance, attending racking strategies, and allowing statistical forecasting. Improvements in retail include use of big data, which now offers a lot of insights with the potential to increase organizational profitability. I cannot overemphasize the use of CCTV. Shelving and aisle planning is great, and point-of-sale technologies continue to improve. I did come up with some insights from the focus group discussions, and I'll just pick on those that I think are very interesting. The one is that people did mention that the sector needs a strong professional body to guide the standards that must be carried out or that must be monitored to ensure that the WNR SETA is operating at top level. They all mentioned the importance of approach or to because some have seen that they did buy huge technological implements, and then they realized, no, but we can still continue using people to carry left, right, and center. It works out more affordable. Insights from observations. I sat around in warehouses as well as even in supermarkets, and honestly, one can say that the shelving and the aisle arrangements in South Africa are world standard, world class. Things like use of AI for weighing goods before they are air freighted to whatever destinations that they're going to. But there's still need for human interaction in things like checking what's happening. Drones are a game changer. But the one that made me laugh was that in the export sector, I think it was DSV, they still have dogs to sniff drugs and other illicit objects. So it's scaling down from humans to dogs. We cannot get rid of that touch. And it also warmed my heart to realize that in some of these big warehouses, they have offices for SARS, which means they're highly compliant houses, but unfortunately, warehouses might just end up with one person working in them. So is that a plus, or should we rethink? And then I had some recommendations, but these people can read on their own. But I think the most important thing about the recommendations and ethical considerations, maybe allow me just to touch on one. that online shopping, unfortunately, psychologists are seeing more and more people who have become so anxious, who are instant, who want to get things now, and it has become addictive. And Africa, countries like Ghana are now lumbered by goods coming from overseas being dumped on us because people are overbuying because there's nothing to do but just go click, click, click. Okay? And then the other recommendations will come around training. Sorry, I have to stop there, but once you put a lecturer on a podium, you're in trouble.
I didn't say it, you did. But I certainly hope that we will touch on the recommendations because they are important. If I can then immediately ask Dr. Buthelezi to make her way to the lectern and the clickers on it. And Dr. Buthelezi's subject, ladies and gentlemen, as you will see, was just around the navigation of this e-commerce evolution. We are aware that we are running behind time, and I know she will help me in order for us to get into this conversation and really unpack more of these findings, but also the practical examples that will come from the rest of our panel. Thank you, and over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As introduced, my name is Makosazane Buthelezi, and today I will be sharing some insights on navigating e-commerce evolution, assessing skills, implications, and workforce adaptation. I need my slide, please. Thank you. E-commerce has become one of the fastest and growing forces that is shaping retail. Globally, we have seen how e-commerce has redefined how businesses operate, how customers engage, and most importantly, how workforce adapt. In South Africa, there is digital transformation. However, it is uneven. So this has brought us to ask critical questions such as, are our workforce equipped with the right digital skills? And also, are our businesses adapting to these changes to remain competitive in the industry? We have seen also several reports, industry reports from Deloitte, Biz Community, and so on, who have constantly highlighted the importance of e-commerce in South Africa. Currently, we have, in 2023, sales increased to 71 billion, and now we are also expecting 30% in this single year, and for 1 in every 10 retail sales. So focusing on working on e-commerce skills would not only enhance